big day today. I knew it was coming, and I honestly kind of forget whether it's the 26th or the 27th, and just forget about it in general often, which is crazy. It is crazy to think that I could forget, that it's like a passing thought and not at the forefront, because I definitely never thought I wouldn't be thinking about alcohol. I remember people saying, one day you just won't think about it. Like, one day this won't be this big of a deal. And I'm like, you don't know me. Like, I'm different, maybe for you, but I will always be only thinking about this. I will only be obsessed with this. And it was just a horrifying thought to think that I wouldn't ever get out of the pain and the craving and the battle that I was living in. So my inability to be able to imagine that things could change or that things could be any different really kept me stuck. Because I couldn't even open up that language. I didn't have a language for what it could be like, and it was challenging to not be able to break out of that delusion enough to envision and step into it. I didn't real gracefully step into it. And I really didn't want to either. And I've shared about this before, that like my issue was less about really wanting to be sober, or like that. It was less about me trying to be sober and not being able to, because I never wanted to be sober. That was the issue. The issue was less in me trying and failing and more into me having the desire to begin with. I thought it would be horrible. What would I do with my life? I remember telling one of my therapists, she was telling me like, you're going to die. Like, there's not a lot of other options. Like, that's what's gonna wind up happening. Or you're going to get sober, or you're going to find a way to do this. And to that, my little tantrumy little inner child came out, and I was like, if that's what I have to do, well, then buy me a rocking chair. Like, that's what I said it, like, vitriolically, like, because my life is going to be over. Like, sobriety, you're just going to rip my life away from me. And I was just under such a delusion that I was living. And it's so interesting how, studying about denial and about how we confirmation bias, you see it in our world all the time now. And it's so apparent. Not that that's new, but it's so obvious, and that we always are doing what we think is right. And we come up with very elaborate stories to make ourselves right, or our choices right. And, looking back in hindsight now, well, first I'll say that I still have this idea of myself when I look back of like, ha, 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 ha. Like this kind of like, my head is back, like my arms are up and I'm laughing. Like, this is the vision that I have of like, like life is grand, life is good. And that's really what I identified with, even though that was not really my reality. That was a small percentage of what my reality was. But I was so attached to that identity that I was living a good life that I wasn't able to see how much pain that I was in and how much I was killing myself. I was so sick, but I was so attached to this identity that I was having fun that I couldn't see it. Like, that delusion is so thick. And I like to call it like avoidance acrobats, the way that we maneuver this way and that to get away from and not see what's in front of us and not see the truth. So my biggest battle was not in trying and failing, but in actually seeing the truth, into seeing what was actually true, and that this big costume of vibrancy that I would put on, in literally costumes and laughter, and I would always be creating some reason for celebration or party or people around, and this semblance of joviality that I needed was all a mask for how much suffering was underneath, and so the grander the mask, the show, it's like the farther away I was staying from that, oh my God, I am in so much shame from old stories, from old past traumas, like how far I was trying to get away from that vulnerability of being a young girl and feeling shameful and feeling not good enough and feeling bad. Like I thought I was bad person. Like I was just like bad to the core. And a lot of shame, and man, what shame will make us do. But that was too tender. That was too challenging to face, especially as a young girl. So I invented myself. Like it was a brilliant solution. I invented this woman, this girl who was carefree and happy and joyful and really living life, partly because of the fact that I was scared to. And it's not like one is good and one is bad and one is not us and one is us. We all have different parts of ourselves. Like that is a part of me, because I do this. I have this jovial, celebratory self in my sobriety. Like that is a part of me that I am attracted to. And luckily, I'm finding that in sobriety, but it's just interesting to go back and kind of watch the way that things transpired. And the farther I can get away from it, I like notice other things. Like I begin to notice things in a new way. So I guess bringing it back around. I guess back around to those that have been toying with the idea of this fucking sobriety thing and thinking that it's going to be horrible, which sounds crazy to some of us. Some of you probably listening are like, what do you mean? That's absurd. But really, I feel you. There's not this like anything that I could really say to break that spell. But like I knew, a part of me knew, a part of you knows that it's got to change. You just don't know what's on the other side. So sometimes you hear the phrase like, take the leap into the unknown. And like, it sounds all like exciting. Like I did not feel like I was leaping off of anything. I felt like I was just falling down a pit. Like it doesn't have to be graceful. But eventually I did come to a point where I knew I had to do something different, because I didn't want to get sober. I didn't want to die. And that was enough. It doesn't have to be, you don't have to have this grand vision of your life in sobriety and what that's going to be. And no, you don't. You just got to do something different, and it's going to come, and it's going to open up, and things will shift, and you'll learn as you go, and you'll learn yourself as you go. I'm still learning, and it's beautiful. And it's, really heartbreaking to think that I could have missed it. And so many people do. So many people who really, really try miss it. And then again, there's those of us that are out there that don't want it. We think we don't want it. And I just encourage you to give it a chance. You don't have to be leaping into it. But that part of you that knows that something needs to shift, you don't even have to fully believe it, but just a little bit. Just walk or crawl or, sidestep a little bit closer that way. Because we do not know what we don't know. We think we do. We think we know all the things, but we don't. And there's just so much on the other side of what we feel that we know. There's so much on the other side. So let yourself expand. Like let yourself have a little bit of a bigger capacity to see what's possible. Because I would have never, ever written my life as good as it is now. Had somebody asked me, when I was first getting sober, like anything you want, like write your dream life, I wouldn't have written all of the incredible people that I've met and places that I've been and things that I found out about myself. And it just continues. And when I think back about myself 8 years ago, I was like, fuck this. Like I thought that it was over. I thought that my life was over when it was really just beginning. So it just goes to show how little that we know and how much I really wish I could give myself a big hug then. That very angry girl. But 8 years, it's been freaking amazing and hard, still hard, but I wouldn't change it. Absolutely wouldn't change it. And I highly recommend it. Let me know if you have any questions or if whatever. I love exploring this. My people. And props to those of you who don't need that wall to do something different. Because I applaud you. I definitely need the wall. I needed the bottom. I needed all of that, but we're all different. Yeah, for those of you who are sober curious and just want to change things, like, it's incredible. It's incredible. We're all on different paths. We're all on the same path in many, many different ways. And, very possibly it's not substance. There's so many ways that we run from ourselves, but I have a particular affinity for those with the substance affinity. All right, now I'm rambling. Check out my talk at Sober Voices that's coming up. I'll add a link down in the bio. I'm really excited to share with this collaborative some incredible speakers. And then I'll have another Emerge coming out beginning of the year, and some really exciting news around Emerge. It'll be a little bit, but I have a pretty big project in mind with it to really scale some recovery. We'll see what happens. All right. Big love.